Welcome to the Pursuit. Glad you're here for the final service of the day. It's just been one of those days. I know you think you say that every week, but seriously, it's been one of those days. Just been an absolutely awesome day. If it's your first time here at the Pursuit, or honestly, even if you're pretty new, I want to try to catch you up a little bit. The sermon tonight has to do with just the end of a passage that we looked at a few months ago, actually. August 16th and 23rd, I did a two-part series, What Would You Say? Did them narrative style, so it's a story about what happens to the Apostle Paul, and instead of telling it to you from Paul Hatfield's perspective, that's me, I told it from the Apostle Paul's perspective. So if you missed those sermons, we have CDs, actually made some to make sure that they're out there, but you can get the podcast. Would encourage you to listen to those to catch up. But I'll tell you kind of what the story is, and then we're just really looking at the last two verses of that passage. But Paul is preaching around areas, traveling around, ends up back in Jerusalem, ends up in the temple. Some Jewish zealots who had actually tried to kind of destroy him and stop his ministry when he was in their town, they were there, they saw him, they kind of wigged out, got the crowd around him, started beating the tar out of him, trying to kill him. The Roman commander finds out, storms down the mountain with 200 soldiers, rescues the Apostle Paul, and is taking him back to the barracks to try to torture him, to try to find out the truth of what it is that he did that would cause these people to freak out and want to kill him. And as he's going back, he asks permission to talk to the people that were just trying to kill him, and the commander grants him the permission, and he stands up on the steps and quiets everybody down and preaches to this crowd, tells them his story, what happened to him. He is a Jew, was out persecuting Christians. God spoke to him, and he gets right to the end, and they're listening and get the feeling they're really considering what he'd have to say. And then he gets to the end, verse 21, and he says, "And he, God, said to me, 'Go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles.'" Verse 22 says, "They listened to him up to this statement, and then they raised their voices and said, 'Away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live.'" Now, that's kind of a strange verse if you're not familiar with the Bible, but the Old Testament, the Jews, they were God's people. They viewed everybody else as outside of God's reach, and through Christ, Jesus came, and salvation was available to anyone who would invite him to forgive their sin and lead their life. They could be ushered into the family of God, and the Jews didn't like this, okay, because they viewed the Gentiles as dirt. Honestly, they were detestable to them. They didn't want anything to do with them. And so Paul's saying, yeah, God told me to go share with his Gentiles. They didn't want that. They didn't want them saved. And you can actually follow this through if you read the book of Acts. It's interesting to see the Jewish Christians start to kind of wrestle with this. In Acts 10, Peter is speaking to Cornelius, who's a Gentile, and says to him, "God has shown me that I should not call any man unholy or unclean." Like, there are no more Gentiles in God's eyes. Everybody is the same. We're all equal. And for the Jews at that time, that was an impossible thing for them to get their minds around. They saw the Gentiles as inferior. They didn't care if the Gentiles went to hell, and honestly, they were hoping they would. They didn't want them saved. They were unclean. They were unholy, not worth saving in their mind. Well, who are your Gentiles? Who are the people that honestly you would say, "Well, I don't want them forgiven. They're not worthy of being forgiven because of what they did." Maybe they did something to you, but maybe it's somebody that you just kind of observed, somebody who did some incredible crime, injured, killed somebody else, committed some crime, and you look at that and say, "I hope they pay. I hope they pay." And honestly, if you heard, as we hear from time to time, these serial killers who somebody shares the gospel with them and they pray to receive Christ, and you read it and you're like, I hope not. I mean, I hope they pay. I hope they pay. What if there are any Gentiles for any of us? But honestly, for most of us, we're above that. And it's not that we have people that we don't want them to come to Christ. We choose instead the sin of indifference, and we do nothing to try to bring some people to Christ. See, we don't care really if they come to faith in Christ. We don't really care if they die without Jesus. Who are your Gentiles? Who is not as valuable to you? Who do you think is not as valuable to God as you? Is it a particular religion? People from another religion? Is it maybe a different race? John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Do you suppose when it says the world that it includes them? The people that to whom you're indifferent, the people you don't really care that much about. This is totally weird, and I don't know why this is true, but honestly, as we look through this tonight, I think you'll agree with me that this is true. When we read, "For God so loved the world," we think he was referring to upper middle class white people in Idaho. Like it's us, we're God's nation. But do you think that includes the poor when God said that? Do you think he loves the poor just as much as he loves the rich? Does it include your neighbor? Not the one you like, but the one you don't like, your classmate, not the one, your friend, but the one that you can't stand, your coworker that drives you crazy. Do you think when it says God loved the world that it includes him, that it includes her? God's love extends to every person on this planet, regardless of their ethnicity, geography, net worth, abilities, intellect. We have a tendency to think that God prioritizes America. Yes, we'll admit God so loved the world, but he loves us more. Why is that? Why is that? And honestly, the media kind of expects this of us. You read a report, July 28th, there was a plane crash in Pakistan. 152 people died in that plane crash. Honestly, most people wouldn't care, except there were 2 Americans on board. It's like, oh, 2 Americans lost their lives. How sad. As if the 150 Pakistanis that lost their lives are somehow less valuable to God than Americans. Think about the miners in Chile, trapped underground, 69 days, 33 miners underground. If those were 33 Americans trapped underground, we would have been glued to the TV. We would have been holding prayer vigils. We all would have watched them one by one pulled to safety finally. 69 days, can you imagine living underground for 69 days? But they were Chileans, they're not as valuable to us as us, are they? You have the drug cartels, the massacres happening down in Mexico right now. Hundreds of people losing their lives, being slaughtered, murdered in cold blood, and we don't even pay attention to it. But this past week there was an American who was killed. And now, the drug cartel is kind of mad because now America might pay attention because, Americans are worth more to us than Mexicans are. Why is that? Why do we view these other people as Gentiles, as less than us? In Pakistan, due to the flooding about 3 months ago, 100,000 kids, they expect will die of starvation. They will starve to death over the next 6 months if something doesn't happen. 100,000. I wonder, honestly, if we did a show of hands, how many of you have prayed for that? How many have prayed for those kids? How many have devoted time asking, what should we do? Is there something I should do to help? Is there something we should do to help? Probably most of us haven't even paid attention to it. We saw the headline on MSNBC and we just clicked to another story because it's like, oh, they're Pakistanis. Pakistan, by the way, is about 15% larger than Texas. If there were 100,000 kids in Texas who were going to starve in the next 6 months, we would do whatever it took, wouldn't we? I mean, honestly, we would do whatever it took to make sure that those kids didn't die. You know, it's interesting that we've learned and just become callous to these pictures that we see, pictures of kids starving, bloated bellies, bones, like pushing through every joint in their body. And I think I know, maybe uncomfortable to hear, but I think I know why we're okay with that. Because we don't see pictures of white kids. And somehow we think that we are more valuable, that they're of lesser importance, that it's okay. It's okay if they starve. And we're going to start a campus, our first satellite campus in Nampa. We really believe that we need to do a campus in Canyon County. The opportunity out there to care for people like the Pursuit does, we really think it would absolutely go crazy that God would allow us to reach thousands of people out there. I've said it will probably, as we estimate, looking at equipment and staffing and that, we need to raise like $125,000, $150,000 ahead of time to get everything so we can do it right, so we can do that service with excellence. And I've had a few people say and hint, well, we don't have to do it to the same standard that we do things here. I mean, it doesn't have to be as nice a facility as we have here. We could dumb it down, so to speak, out there. And that honestly absolutely offends me when people say that, and I'm sure that it would offend the unchurched people that live in Canyon County if they knew that some of us thought, oh, they're not as valuable. They don't deserve the same care and attention that people here in Boise do. They're not Gentiles. They're not Gentiles to us. They can't be. We've got to do the same level of excellence in facilities, the same level of excellence in staffing for that campus. I was thinking about it, if we did it and decided, hey, we're not going to try to be excellent, we could not call it the Pursuit, honestly, because we started the Pursuit going, we are going to do things to the best of our ability, to what God calls us to, leaning on Him, using what He entrusts us and the abilities that He's given us. We're going to make sure that what we're offering back to Him and inviting the community to is something that's excellent. And I think God's the same in Canyon County. He doesn't become less God, as you drive across the county line. So I think He deserves the same level of excellence and the same sacrifice as we do over here. When we started the Pursuit, we were really clear. People going like, well, what kind of service, what kind of style are you going to have for your service? And I was like, we're going to try to reach college students. We're going to design our service, our Sunday services, for college students. Not that we wouldn't have more than college students come, because obviously we would, and we know that it's not just college students who like good music and that sort of thing, and a environment where you don't have to get dressed up to try to impress people. Like, that appeals to more people than just college students. But it's like, if a college student ever came to the Pursuit and was like, well, this place is totally irrelevant, out of touch to me, then I would say we should just pack up and go home, because we lost what God called us to do. And I can't tell you how many, and I would never tell you names, but how many pastors and Christians would say to me, well, who's going to pay for it? I mean, if you're going to try to reach college students, who's going to fund the church? And I told him, God will. I mean, isn't it kind of backwards to start a church to try to reach people so they can turn around and serve you? I mean, doesn't that seem backwards? Like I don't think that's right. I don't think we're supposed to go, hey, these people can make me a good living, so I'll try to reach them. In fact, there's this passage in Luke 14, great, really convicting passage. Look at what Jesus says. He says, when you give a luncheon or a dinner or maybe start a church or have a service, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors. Otherwise, they may also invite you in return, and that would be your repayment. But when you give a reception, invite the poor, and you will be blessed since they do not have the means to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. I mean, our tendency is, well, I'm having a party. Let's invite people just like me. Let's invite all the people that I like, that I think will give back to me. And Jesus says, no, invite the people who can't give back to you. Those are the people that you should try to care about, that you should build relationships with. You don't start a campus so they can reward us. You can't be selfishly motivated. In fact, I'll just tell you, the next two campuses, we've got them both planned and committed to doing that. First one is in Canyon County where wages are lower, and the second one is by Boise State to reach college students that don't have any money. Those are not lucrative ideas, okay? We're not idiots. I mean, we know. You don't have to tell us like, well, that's not a really good move. But we believe that God will reward us. That God will be faithful and provide for us. Craig Rochelle says, to reach people no one else is reaching, we have to do things that no one else is doing. That's a great quote, but the problem is we have to really wrestle with the fact of, do we really want to reach people no one else is reaching, or do we just want to reach people like us? Do we just want to reach people like us? I mean, are they Gentiles to us? Like they're not worth saving, they're not worth trying to reach. Are we willing to pay the price to reach people that no one else is reaching? So many people have stepped up here at the Pursuit. I talk about the fact that the Pursuit, we have a generous core, that the people who are on board are really on board with us, and don't talk about this very much, but we have, we're, what is normal, 24%, recent statistics, about 24% of evangelical Christians, which, even though you may not like that term because a lot of what goes on that describes us, I mean, churches, Christians that believe that we're here to share Christ's love with other people, 24% tithe. Most give, 76% give less than 10%. We have a bunch of families, households that give, 15, 20% or more. That just like, hey, we're in. We know. We know that what we're trying to do is big and it's not going to be lucrative, so we'll give over and above. That's incredible. I mean, it really is amazing to me that we have people that will do that. We have people, and I don't see names. I don't want to know what people give because I'd like point you out. No, I wouldn't do that. But I don't want to know like what people give. But I get numbers. I just see the numbers at the end of the year. 3 households last year gave over $30,000. That's more than I make. Like 3 households paid my salary, more than my salary. That's crazy. But it's like those people are answers to prayer. I mean, we prayed that God would send people who would be radically generous so that we could reach people that no one else is reaching. And this is kind of hard to explain, but we, from time to time, will get a check for $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. And honestly, every time, it's not that I'm not excited about it, but honestly, in my stomach, I get a little sick to the stomach whenever I see, and I don't know who the people are, but we just see that I just get the email that there was a $15,000 check or a $10,000, and I honestly get sick to my stomach just feeling like, what has God done like through us in this place that would lead somebody to say, we believe in what you're doing enough to say, hey, we don't need another car. I mean, it is so humbling to be a part of something that God is doing, that God is working in so many people. But I prayed that God would bring radically generous people, and He has. As I believe we can still try to reach people that no one else is reaching, and we can still count on God to supply. Those of you who are some of those people, you are allowing us to do what God called us to do. We've got to keep pushing away from the temptation to just try to reach people just like us, but to minister to people who are in need, to whom they have nothing to offer us back in return. And there's no more opportunity, no greater opportunity to do this than with children. With children. I mean, they don't have any, they don't have income, they don't tithe, I mean, it doesn't help. If they give 20%, it's like 30 cents. So, I mean, we don't care for kids because of what they can do for us. But I want to not talk so much today about here in our own facility, which we could, and we could talk all day about how we value kids here. But I want to talk about the kids who are in need around the world. These kids that are just as precious, just as valuable to God as our kids. They are too small to ignore. I did a 2-week series called More Than Worth It. I read a book, Too Small to Ignore. I think there might be a few copies left out at the merch table, but I read it and it just totally just wrecked me. I did that 2-week series last year, More Than Worth It. Get the podcast if you're willing to. It's not really a message that you could listen to on the way to the work. It's like get in a room by yourself and get a box of Kleenex and listen to that and consider what God would have you do. There's no excuse for those of us who are followers of Christ to ignore the suffering of children in the world. They cannot help themselves. Somebody has got to step in and help them. According to UNICEF, each year more than 2 million children are exploited in the global commercial sex trade. A lot of you maybe don't even know that this goes on. 2 million children are forced into prostitution. And we're not talking, all 16 and 17-year-olds, which is horrible to think of that. We're talking like 7 and 8-year-olds. I know they're not your kids, they're not my kids, but they're every bit as valuable to God as our kids. We cannot ignore that. There are 1.3 million orphans in India, it's estimated, 1.3 million. That's an incredible number. I know we can't save them all, but we could save some. We could save some. We already are. A lot of you know about Mercy Homes. Wanted to feature that with our missions month, what we do. We support 14 as a church, which means if you guys give to the Pursuit, you're involved in supporting 14 homes. We also have 5 homes that are supported by families at the Pursuit, so 19 supported by our church body. It's basically a pastor and his wife who are funded by us in order to take in 10 orphans, literally take them off of the streets, living on the streets, take them into their own home, raise them as their own children. And then that pastor and wife, once they have the respect of the community, they start a church. It costs $250 a month to provide a home for 10 kids. This one here sitting in the chair, this story, he was rescued from a trash can. His parents threw him away. And they found him, and he lives in a home, has a mom and a dad and brothers and sisters because of our generosity. I mean, it's awesome, 14, but there are so many more. There's so many more people that we could care for. What if those were your kids living on the streets? We can't view them as Gentiles. They're not less important than us. In Uganda, there's a church that we supported from the beginning. We were connected to him before he started this church in Kampala. He was down in Gaba, went to the city of Kampala to start a church. We had never really done a big push for sponsoring kids, but they got the church going, and he was ready to do that. And so we had last year for October had 156 sponsor cards made up. These were kids who are in their community that their church could reach out to. Had most of those kids sponsored, not all of them. There were a few that weren't sponsored, and then we've had some people drop off that because of finances or maybe just a change of heart decided that they couldn't do that anymore, but the Pursuit has continued to sponsor those kids. We just write the check for all 156, transfer the money for all 156 kids every month. That's something maybe some of you could do and jump in and help with that. There are 120 more kids in their community that they are ready to sponsor. They just need people like us to say, hey, I could round down in my spending. If you don't know how to do that, get the free to give CDs out front. You could round down 35. Could you spend $35 a month less to provide, education and a meal and clothing and medical attention to a child in need in Uganda? I think a lot of us could do that. So here's the thing. I think all of us who are followers of Christ should be involved in this one way or another. And I'll say, and this is just my perspective. This isn't like a verse here, so you can dismiss it if you want. But I think kind of the baseline thing that all of us who are Christians should do is support a church financially that ministers to kids. I mean, that's just kind of like, well, we can all do that, obviously varying levels and varying percentages and that sort of thing. But that's kind of, the starting point. Like, hey, support a church. I mean, you guys, you hopefully know what we do, and you could ask more questions as far as what we do and the amount that's given away to care for kids. It's phenomenal. But that's like what all of us should do. But then I think there are things that some of us should do. You got one of these cards on the way in. And I think the next step, which honestly, there are a lot of us who could do that. Some of you high schoolers are doing this, actually. I know some high school students are already doing this, but it's $35 a month. Like, there are a lot of us who could do this and say, hey, we're gonna send $35 a month and sign up so it's pulled out of my account automatically so I don't forget. And you can make a difference in a child's life. I do want to say, if you want to look at Compassion International or World Vision, absolutely go for it. We love those organizations. In fact, you can pray for me because I'm preaching next Sunday, but Tuesday I leave for Guatemala and fly back on Saturday. And just the timing of it's really interesting because I honestly don't think I would have been able to deliver this message after having seen and held and touched these kids that live in just incredible poverty. But Compassion International, World Vision, they're awesome organizations. If you feel any connection to them and want to do that, just go to worldvision.org or compassion.com. But if you want to partner alongside of your brothers and sisters here at the Pursuit and say, well, what if we sponsored a whole bunch of kids in one town through a church? That's kind of the direction we're going with. So you could mark that you're interested. I want to make clear this key word on the top is information. This is not signing your life away commitment. This is, hey, I'm open to what God might lead me to. And if you're open to supporting a child in Uganda, mark that box. The next level, so to speak, in my opinion, but I look at it like it's one thing to write a $35 a month check. It's another thing to take a child into your home, foster care. There's an incredible need for foster parents in this valley. Incredible need for it. Brian Burkhart, who's one of the pastors here, you see his face, whether you like it or not, on a lot of the video announcements. But Brian and Katie, they don't have kids yet. She teaches, he works here, she teaches in the public school system, and they just kind of looked at it and thought, man, we could be foster parents for elementary aged kids. And honestly, I think it caught us all like, I don't know, we just had never really thought of that before. And so their prayer requests were always about the process. We kind of walked through that process and filled out the references and all those things. And they finally got approved to be foster parents of elementary kids. And so which they told them, here's the need, that they were one of 2 approved elementary age foster parents, like in the valley, that weren't already full. So they're like, you will get called. This is not going to be some waiting list thing. You will get called. And Adam and Kara, Adam's our student ministries pastor, they had the idea to do kind of a kid shower or whatever it was. We didn't know what it was. We're like, this is weird, but it's a great idea. And they're like, they're getting elementary kids, and they don't necessarily have everything. So they set up a date, picked a date a couple weeks out on a Friday night, the day before, Thursday. Brian and Katie got the call. We've got two boys that we need you to take care of for a time. So they picked them up Thursday, Friday night. 20 people from the Pursuit come over with gift cards and gifts and have dinner with these kids who I have to imagine were a little blown away that all of a sudden there were all these people who just absolutely loved them. To watch my kids play with them. It was an awesome day. We were super excited that God brought these kids into our staff family. Our staff is incredibly close, and we were just super excited. And like 4 days later, Brian comes in. He's like, "They're gone." That was it. And we're like, "Oh, no way!" And their aunt. He's like, "It's good though." Their aunt stepped up and decided that she could take care of them, and that's obviously great for family to do that. So we were glad. And he's like, "Guess where they live? In the Renaissance Apartments right here." And we're like, "No way. Like, that is not a coincidence." And because the kids came to the Pursuit one night and loved XL and Brian and Katie's interaction with their aunt, they got permission Brian and Katie got permission to come take them and bring them to church still. They were here this morning. They still come. Like, how cool is that? We could make a huge dent, you guys. Honestly, if the Pursuit would just own this, if we would say, "Hey, man, those of us who could, we could do this," there would be a waiting list for foster kids in this valley. I mean, how awesome would it be? The response this morning and the last service has been awesome. I can't wait until the social workers and whoever that system and how it works, till we call them and say, "Hey, we have 25 families that are interested in being foster parents." I wish I could see their faces when they hear that. Brian and Katie now have 2 girls. They will continuously have kids because there's such a need. Maybe that would be something that some of us could do. And then there's, I think the ultimate level, which is adoption. This is, taking a child that's not biologically your family and deciding that they're family and saying we're going to raise them as our own child. There are so many kids around the world that need a home. So many kids. Is this something that you should consider? There are, and I think this is okay to say, I hope so, because I've said it 3 other services, that there's some people when they look to adopt that are looking for a certain race of a child. That should not be us. There are no more Gentiles, okay? Every kid is equal to God. I don't think we should draw lines. I don't know if it's something you should consider. I'll just be really honest. I didn't tell first service, but got more courage through the day. That I think Angela and I are going to move forward and start investigating this, because we've always talked about, like, someday maybe we could and we should. We have 3 children that God's given us so far, and thought we're done cranking them out, but we could maybe adopt one someday, and so we're going to start investigating that and seeing if this is something that God. I mean, we could do it. We have the home, we have the vehicle, it's like we could do this. And the immediate pushback from everybody, and it was my pushback too, is the money thing. Like, dude, I don't, we don't have the resources to do that, but thanks to our government and their incredible lack of fear of going into further deficit, they will, and it's through 2011 so far, a $13,000 refundable tax credit to you. If you adopt, they'll reimburse you for $13,000, the first $13,000 of the expenses. That's incredible. What an incredible opportunity, to kind of eliminate those things. And there are churches that, thanks to the generosity of their people, I heard of a church that, because even so, it's like, well, coming up with that $13,000, but there's a church that I know of that, because of the generosity of their people, they've just kind of built up this savings, and anybody in the church that wants to adopt, they will loan them the $13,000 and up front so they can proceed with the adoption, and then when they get the tax credit, they pay back the church, and then that money just is used for the next adoption. There are all these kids being adopted. It's like, that is cool. I mean, that is something that, man, we could do. Like, we could do that. I really believe that if you want to adopt and don't have the resources but have the heart, that we as a church should figure out a way that some of what we give as missions is for adoption. That's the ultimate mission. That's the ultimate act of care, is bringing somebody into your home. I don't know what you should do, but we have a lot of families that have adopted that have said all day long, man, we'll talk to people. I don't know totally how we're going to play this out, but I think we're going to have a big old party with all the people who are considering adoption and have questions, and the families who have adopted, and say, let's talk. Let's see what this looks like. But this card, man, I don't know what you're supposed to do, but my guess is you should do something. I mean, like I said, very minimum is just support the pursuit if you aren't already, but maybe God would have you do something else. And what I want you to do with these is not just put them in the offering, but to actually walk out to the sender's table out front and hand it to somebody on the sender's team, so you can kind of put a face, and this is where they are, and so they can get these from you. And maybe you'd have questions. I think we'll have some adoptive parents that are out there this service, and I know Brian's here to kind of talk about foster care, and John's back there running the slides, and he's in the process of being a foster parent as well. Jesus tells a parable about the future in Matthew 25. He's talking about when he's going to separate his followers from the people who are not his followers. And he tells them, he says, hey, you saw me naked and you clothed me. Come, you who are my followers, you saw me naked and you clothed me. You saw me, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. And he says, they're like, what are you talking about? We didn't see you. We never met you. And he said, no, whatever you did for the least of these, you did it to me. When you reached out and met the need of somebody who was in need, it was as if you were doing it for me directly. See, it's not just that they're not Gentiles, it's that they are every bit as valuable to God as us. Every bit as valuable, so much so that Jesus says, if you serve them, it's as if you were serving me directly. What an incredible, incredible thought. If you love Jesus, then show that by caring for the people who are in need. Jesus said, I had this thought this past week. This is so cool. He said, if you give even a cup of water to one of these little ones, you'll not lose your reward. And I just thought, man, if you get rewarded for a cup of water, what do you get for a well? I mean, seriously, when it's like, man, we're going to put a well in a village and give kids water until Christ returns. Like, what's the reward for that one? Because that's awesome that we could do that. We can do that. I mean, if giving a cup of water to a child in need is rewarded by God, what is taking them into your home as your own child? What's the reward then? How cool would it be to be a church that was known for caring for the people who don't have a chance unless somebody else steps in? Where people who wanted to adopt, where families would come around. I had somebody come up to me today and say, I have people that will give toward adoption. They can't adopt, but they will give toward it. I mean, like, what if that was just normal for us? And we could see over time, dozens, then hundreds of kids find homes and grow up with a church family like this. I mean, what if we had a reputation in this town and all of the social workers and all of them heard about the pursuit because we were a church that stepped up and said, we're going to care for the kids whose parents can't care for them. I know, and here's the pushback. I know we can't save them all, but we could save some. Don't let the lie that you can't save all of them keep you from doing nothing. I know we can't save them all, but we can save some. We can't adopt every orphan, but we could adopt some. We can't care for every child and put every child in a mercy home in India, but we can put some. And honestly, if we would all come together, we'd stop messing around and all come together, we could save a lot. We could do a lot. Um, this is an amazing number. It's estimated that it would cost $13 billion to provide basic nutrition to every starving person in the world. $13 billion. So we're gonna pass an offering right now in hopes that, no, we're not. Because it's like, wait, anybody, I forgot my checkbook, otherwise I'd cover that, right? I mean, you look at that and go, we don't have that. And I know we don't, but what if we just did our part, and maybe some other churches and Christians and people would hear about this church in little Idaho that got things straightened out and is making a difference? Because here's some statistics about what American Christians, we're not talking about Americans as a whole, we're not talking about Christians in the world, we're talking about American Christians. The need is $13 billion. American Christians spend about $7 billion a year on sporting events, $11 billion a year on coffee, $13 billion, match the number, on our pets. Okay, I know Fido's precious, but in comparison to a child, here's the worst statistic in my mind. We spend $13 billion on weight loss programs. Think of the irony of that. Okay, there are starving people in the world, and we eat way more food than we need to, so we pay what it would cost to feed every starving person to try to lose weight because we eat too much. That is crazy. Spend $17 billion on boating and golfing, $20 billion on soft drinks, $21 billion on cable and satellite TV, $76 billion a year on home renovations, and $105 billion a year eating out. $105 billion. Now, just a question. How do you think that looks from heaven? I mean, from God's perspective. To look down on the earth and see all of these Christians who are the richest Christians in the history of the world, who have the capacity, if they had the heart and the habits, to care for all of the kids everywhere else who are starving. How do you think that looks to God? I think it breaks his heart. You know, if you spend any time, we talked about being missionaries the last couple of weeks and living as a missionary, and I'll tell you, I'll warn you of a question. If you start to get involved in people's lives that are far from God, they're not sure they believe in God. One of the questions that you'll hear is, if there's a God who's so loving, why are there so many starving people in the world? That's a fair question. If you're somebody who's not a Christian tonight, I'm so sorry that I'm going to tell you the answer because it's embarrassing. But do you want to know the answer to that question? If there's a loving God, why are there so many starving people in the world? The reason is because all of the people who say they follow God, that God supplied the money to care for all of the starving people in the world, have decided instead to spend it on themselves. It's not God's fault there are starving people in the world. It's our fault as his followers. He gave us the money to take care of the need, but we won't do it. If all of this conversation doesn't get at your heart, if you're just kind of pushing back and saying, oh, this isn't for me, I don't need to pay attention to this, I really think you should question whether or not you're a follower of Christ. I really do. I think you should look at it and say, does the Spirit of God live in me if I don't care? Look at this verse, 1 John 3:17. But whoever has the world's goods, that will be us, and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does the love of God abide in him? Like, how is it possible for the God who sent his son to die for these people live in you and you not care? No, we have to care. Don't close your heart. I know it hurts. I know it makes you go back and have to look at everything in your finances and recalculate everything and wrestle and pray with God, what am I supposed to do? But that's exactly what you need to do. Don't close your heart. Get on board with us. Let's do this. Let's make a difference. I know we can't save them all, but we can save some. There are no more Gentiles. There are no inferior people out there. God loves the world. Every one of us. Orphan Sunday is November 7th. It's in 3 weeks. And some people have emailed us saying, hey, do you know Orphan Sunday's coming up? Are we doing anything for Orphan Sunday? We decided to do our own Orphan Sunday today. We'll mention it November 7th in 3 weeks, and it won't be the topic of the sermon or anything, but we thought we'd do it today because do you realize that between now and November 7th, somewhere around 650,000 kids under the age of 5 will die, preventable deaths, in the next 3 weeks. It's 30,000, somewhere between 27 and 30,000 children a day die preventable deaths. Read a blog yesterday, I haven't said this all day, but read a blog from a couple that's connected to the couple that you're going to hear from in a little bit that went to an orphanage, and there was this child dying of malaria because they didn't have the $2 that it took to walk across the street and buy the meds that would have saved this child's life. They didn't have $2. No, every day we wait is another day of suffering. We need to do something today. No, we can't save them all, but we could save some. And there are some that God has put on this planet and has lined everything up so that we could reach them. It's just a question of if we want to. If we're going to view them as valuable as our kids, because they are every bit as valuable as ours. We're excited about this month because of what we believe we're going to be able to do financially. We challenged you guys, went through Free to Give last 2 weeks of September, said, hey, we have a 5-Sunday month this month. We challenged everybody. We are continually challenging us to be consistent with our giving this month to see if we can hit $135,000 in giving. If we do that, then we get to give away 20% to missions, which we believe we're on course for that. So that means like what you give today, for every dollar, 20 cents we give away. It's awesome. I mean, the opportunity there. We really believe that we're going to do that. We really believe that we should be able to do that from now on, that 20% will be the new standard for a time until we can raise that. Those of you who are guests, as we pass the baskets in just a minute, you're not expected to give. If you like the sound of being involved in something significant, you're welcome to. If you're a Christian and you're kind of looking for a church home, this is on your list, one to mark off as, and you decide. And I mean, if you want to be a part of something like this, then join us. But if you want to be a part of somebody that's trying to make a difference, join us. The story that you're going to hear as we pass this is an adoption story. It's a story that of a family here at the Pursuit that's in the process of adoption. Absolutely phenomenal. They're the couple we're getting together with tomorrow afternoon to talk with and see how their story relates to ours. Well, ushers will pass the baskets as we watch.